March 15th, 2024. 0300 hours. Eastern Mediterranean. The USS Gerald R. Forward Carrier Strike Group maintains station 70 nautical miles off a contested coastline. 8 warships, 90 aircraft, 6,000 personnel. And right now, they're about to demonstrate why attacking this formation isn't just difficult. It's mathematically impossible. Not because of what they'll do to you, because of what you'll never see coming. Here's what most people don't understand about carrier strike groups. They're not floating targets. They're moving fortresses with detection ranges that make your attack window disappear before you even know they exist. The IN/Spy-6 radar system aboard the Arleigh Burke-class destroyers in this formation can track a basketball-sized object at 250 miles. That's not a capability. That's a death sentence for anything trying to approach. And that's just one system. We haven't talked about the E-2 Hawkeye flying 30,000 feet above the formation, sweeping 4 million cubic miles of airspace every 10 seconds. We haven't mentioned the P-8 Poseidon Maritime Patrol aircraft orbiting 200 miles out, dropping sonobuoys and patterns that turn the ocean into a sensor grid. And we definitely haven't discussed the Virginia-class attack submarine running silent 300 feet below the surface, listening to propeller signatures from 100 nautical miles away. You want to fire a missile at this formation? Great. Let's do the math. Your anti-ship cruise missile. Let's say it's a decent one, modern, sea-skimming, Mach 0.8. Launches from a coastal battery 70 miles away. Flight time? 5 minutes 20 seconds. Sound fast. Except the strike group's radar detected your missile the instant it cleared the horizon. That happened at exactly 0.4 seconds after launch, when a missile's rocket motor lit up like a signal flare on every infrared sensor within a 100-mile radius. Detection to engagement authorization? 12 seconds. That's how long it takes for the Combat Information Center aboard USS Gettysburg, the Ticonderoga-class cruiser screening the ford, to classify the threat, calculate the intercept solution, and transmit firing orders to 2 destroyers positioned on the threat axis. Now your missile is 3 minutes into its flight. It's 30 miles out, sea skimming at 40 feet above the water. And here's where your plan dies. Because the strike group doesn't fire 1 interceptor. They fire 18. 6 SM-2 missiles from each of the 3 escorts positioned between your missile and the carrier. These interceptors are moving at Mach 3.5. Your missile is doing Mach 0.8. Closing speed? Over 2,000 miles per hour. First intercept happens at 22 miles from the carrier. Your missile doesn't dodge. It can't. The SM-2's blast fragmentation warhead detonates 40 feet from your missile's airframe, sending 8,000 tungsten fragments through the fuselage at 15,000 feet per second. Your missile disintegrates into a debris cloud that splashes into the Mediterranean 3 seconds later. But let's say you're smart. Let's say you don't fire 1 missile. You fire 12. Saturation attack. Overwhelm the defenses. Solid plan. Except the strike group plan for that 6 months ago. Each Arleigh Burke destroyer carries 96 vertical launch cells. The Ticonderoga cruiser carries 122. That's over 400 interceptors distributed across the screening formation. Your 12 missiles? They're engaging a defense network that can simultaneously track and engage 300 threats. The strike group's Aegis Combat System doesn't prioritize targets the way you think. It doesn't pick the closest missile first. It calculates which threats have the highest probability of penetration based on speed, trajectory, radar cross-section, and approach angle. Then it assigns multiple interceptors per threat in staggered waves. Your 12 missiles get engaged by 48 SM-2s and 16 evolved Sea Sparrow missiles in a layered defense that starts at 60 miles and collapses inward in 3 concentric rings. None of your missiles make it past the second ring. Average intercept distance from the carrier? 34 miles, which means the Ford's close-in weapon systems, the Phalanx CIWS and rolling airframe missiles, never even spin up. Now let's talk submarines, because that's the scenario everyone thinks will work. Diesel-electric boat running silent on battery power, creeping toward the formation at 4 knots. Patient, professional, and completely screwed. Here's why. That Virginia-class submarine we mentioned, it's not alone. There are two Los Angeles-class boats operating in a triangulated screen 50 miles ahead of the formation. These submarines aren't hunting you. They're listening. And the ocean is loud. Your diesel-electric is quiet, sure, but it's not silent. The water pumps cooling your batteries make noise. Your hull creaks as you change depth. Your propeller, even at 4 knots, generates cavitation bubbles that collapse with a distinct acoustic signature. And the strike group's passive sonobuoy network, refreshed every 6 hours by P-8 aircraft, has been recording the ambient sound profile of this entire operating area for 3 days. They're not listening for your submarine. They're listening for the absence of normal sound. When you move through their sensor grid, you don't make noise. You make silence. The schools of fish that were there, gone. The background biologics, disrupted. That anomaly gets flagged, correlated with other sensors, and prosecuted. Prosecution doesn't mean you get torpedoed. It means an MH-60 Romeo helicopter drops an active sonobuoy directly on top of your position and pings you with high-frequency active sonar at 190 decibels. That sound wave turns your submarine into a beacon. Now the Virginia-class boat has your exact position, depth, speed, and heading. You try to run. You light off your diesel to get speed. And the moment that engine turns over, you've just told every sensor in a 100-mile radius exactly where you are. The Virginia doesn't even close to torpedo range. It doesn't need to. An MH-60 Romeo puts a Mark 54 lightweight torpedo in the water 800 yards ahead of your projected course. That torpedo goes active immediately, acquires your hull signature, and runs you down at 45 knots. Your submarine tops out at 20 knots submerged. You can't outrun it. You can't outturn it. The Torpedoes guidance system updates its intercept solution 18 times per second. It hits your hull just forward of the sail. 300 pounds of high explosive focused into a shaped charge that punches through pressure hull steel like it's aluminum foil. Catastrophic flooding. Hull collapse at depth. 11 seconds from detonation to total loss. No survivors. But let's say you're really committed. Let's say you've got air assets. 4th-generation fighter with anti-ship missiles. You're 200 miles out, flying low, hugging the terrain. Radar off. You think you're invisible. You're not. Because 70 miles ahead of the carrier formation, there's an E-2 Hawkeye. And that aircraft isn't looking for your fighter's radar signature. It's looking for empty space. Modern stealth doesn't make you invisible. It makes you quiet. But quiet is still something. The Hawkeye's APY-9 radar uses synthetic aperture processing to build a real-time map of everything in its coverage area. It sees the air traffic. It sees the weather patterns. It sees the birds. And when there's a hole in that picture, when migrating seabirds suddenly veer off course, when atmospheric moisture readings show displacement, that's not stealth. That's a target. The Hawkeye doesn't need to see you. It just needs to see what you moved. Your fighter is 120 miles out when the Hawkeye tags you. Classification takes 4 seconds. The data gets transmitted via Link 16 to every air defense node in the strike group and to 2 F-35CS already airborne on combat air patrol. Those F-35s aren't where you think they are. You're assuming they're circling the carrier. They're not. They're 70 miles out on your intercept bearing, positioned between you and the formation, flying a racetrack pattern at 25,000 feet. And they've been waiting for you. Because the strike group's intelligence section analyzed your airfield's flight patterns for the past 6 weeks. They know your squadron's standard operating procedures. They know you launch at dawn. They know your preferred ingress routes. And they position the CAP accordingly. You're 90 miles out when the F-35 pilot gets towed. Not radar lock. Not yet. Infrared search and track. Your fighter's engines are hot. They radiate heat. The F-35's EOTS, electro-optical targeting system, detects that thermal signature from 60 miles away without emitting a single watt of radar energy. You have no idea you're being tracked. Your radar warning receiver is silent. Because the F-35 isn't painting you. It's watching you. And when you hit 80 miles from the carrier, when you enter what the U.S. Navy calls the commitment zone, the F-35 fires. Not a missile. For missiles, AIM-120 AMRAAMs. Active radar homing. Fire and forget. Those missiles drop from internal weapons bays, light their motors, and accelerate to Mach 4. They're covering a mile every 2 seconds. You're 72 miles out when your radar warning receiver finally screams. Multiple missile launch. Threat axis unknown. You brake hard left, dump chaff, and flares. Light your afterburner. None of it matters. The AMRAAMs went pitbull, active terminal homing, 30 seconds ago. They're not following your aircraft. They're following your flight path. When you brake, the missiles calculate lead angles and adjust. Proportional navigation. They're not chasing you. They're intercepting the point in space where you're going to be. First, missile hits your fighter's tail section. Proximity fuse. Warhead detonates 60 feet from your aircraft and sends 40 pounds of preformed tungsten rods through your starboard engine, hydraulic systems, and vertical stabilizer. You're no longer flying. You're ballistic. Ejection successful. You survive. Your mission didn't. And let's talk about what happens if somehow, a threat makes it through. If one missile, one torpedo, one lucky shot gets inside the defensive rings and actually reaches USS Gerald R. Ford. Because the carrier isn't defenseless. The ship's own defense systems include 2 rolling airframe missile launchers and 2 evolved Sea Sparrow missile systems. That's 56 close-in interceptors with reaction times measured in seconds. But let's say even those fail. Let's say a missile impacts the hull. What happens? Not what you think. The Ford isn't a thin-skinned cargo ship. It's an armored fortress. The flight deck is 3.5 inches of hardened steel. The hull plating is 2 inches of high-tensile alloy designed to absorb blast energy. The internal compartmentalization includes over 4,000 watertight spaces. A single missile hit, even a big one, even a 1,000-pound warhead, damages 1, maybe 2 compartments. The ship's damage control teams have that section isolated and flooded with firefighting foam in under 90 seconds. The carrier doesn't stop. It doesn't even slow down, because the Ford is powered by 2 A-1B nuclear reactors generating 660 megawatts of thermal energy. You can't mission kill this ship with one hit. You need sustained, coordinated strikes from multiple vectors with heavy ordnance. And you're not getting that kind of attack through the defensive screen we just described. Now let's make this really uncomfortable. Let's say you do all of this. You somehow, miraculously, land a disabling hit on the Ford. You've just declared war on the United States Navy. And here's what happens next. Within 6 hours, every intelligence asset the U.S. military owns, satellites, signals intelligence, human intelligence networks, is focused on finding you. Your launch site, your command structure, your logistics chain, your political leadership. Within 12 hours, B-2 Spirit stealth bombers are launching from Whiteman Air Force Base. They're carrying 80,000 pounds of ordnance. Each, within 18 hours, Tomahawk cruise missiles are hitting every military target within 300 miles of your coastline. Your air defense systems, your radar installations, your command bunkers, your ports, your airfields. The strike group you attacked? It's still operational. Damaged, maybe, but operational. And it's not leaving. It's staying right there, projecting power, launching strikes, and you've lost the ability to contest it. Because the carrier strike group isn't a single ship. It's a network system of overlapping offense and defense that takes decades to build, billions of dollars to sustain, and institutional knowledge accumulated over a century of naval warfare to operate. You don't have that. You can't build that. And you sure as hell can't beat it. So what's the actual takeaway here? It's not that carrier strike groups are invincible. It's that they're designed to make the cost of attacking them so catastrophically high that no rational actor would try. This is deterrence through engineering. Every sensor, every interceptor, every platform in that formation exists to present you with a single, unavoidable truth. You cannot win. You cannot even get close. And if you try, you won't just lose the fight. You'll lose the war. Because the United States Navy doesn't deploy carrier strike groups to fight battles. It deploys them to prevent battles from happening in the first place. The presence of the Ford off your coastline isn't a threat. It's a physics demonstration. It's proof that modern naval warfare isn't about courage or tactics anymore. It's about math. And the math isn't in your favor. Here's the part that keeps adversaries awake at night. The Ford isn't alone. There are 10 more carriers in the U.S. fleet. Each one commands a strike group. Each strike group operates with the same sensor networks, the same defensive depth, the same power projection capability, and they're distributed globally. Right now, as you read this, there's a carrier strike group within 7-day sailing of nearly every strategic waterway on Earth. The Strait of Hormuz, the South China Sea, the CIWS Gap, the Eastern Mediterranean, and each one of those formations represents more combat power than most nations' entire military inventories. That's not an exaggeration. A single carrier strike group, 1 carrier, 8 escorts, 60 aircraft, can generate more than 500 combat sorties per week, deliver 2,000 tons of ordnance per day, and dominate 12 million square miles of ocean and airspace. One group. Now multiply that by 11. So when you hear about tensions in a region, when you hear about a carrier being deployed, understand what's really happening. It's not escalation. It's calculus. The Navy is putting a computational problem off your coastline that has no solution. You can't sink it. You can't disable it. You can't even scratch it without triggering a response so disproportionate that your entire military infrastructure becomes a smoking crater before you can reload. And the wildest part? The carrier group accomplishes all of this without firing a shot. Because the goal isn't destruction. It's compliance. The presence of overwhelming, unstoppable force makes conflict irrational. And when conflict becomes irrational, it stops being an option. That's the real power of the carrier strike group. Not the missiles, not the aircraft, the inevitability. You look at that formation on your radar screens, and you do the math. And the math tells you to stand down. Every single time. Sleep well. The U.S. Navy already did the calculations for you.